Well, we all knew it was going to happen eventually, and Don Callis has been fired from his EVP role in Impact Wrestling. I mean, to be honest with you, if he wanted to stay in that position, he probably shouldn't have been flapping his guns and getting involved with main events, which is exactly what he did at Against All Odds. So I guess now he's going to be Kenny Omega's dad for the rest of his wrestling days. Probably a good thing. But my name is Simon for WhatCulture. Thank you very much for joining me as always. And we do have the fallout from that Against All Odds pay-per-view. Namely, just how mad was Moose going to be? Because he did get screwed. So let's find out by taking this to Finger of Power and by giving the good bits an up and the bad bits a flubbing down. So yeah, like I say, Moose started off this week's episode of Impact and he was super duper pissed off. He went and banged on Scott D'Amore's door and he said, "You better sort this out, you absolute piece of trash, because my title opportunity was ruined. You are in charge. Why don't you go do something about it?" As it turned out, Scotty isn't really able to do anything about it because Anthem, the people that own Impact Wrestling, are going to be sending a representative to the show who is going to have some kind of punishment or some kind of consequence. This was a little bit weird because they don't really talk about Anthem that much, but that was the hook for the show. I wonder what's going to happen. Anywho, it was an interesting way to kick things off, and then we were right into TJP versus Black Taurus, which I will admit was very, very random, and it does make sense, but only after the fact. That's kind of just what Impact does. Both these guys are really good too, so no complaints from me, but I don't really get what the plan at the moment is for Black Taurus. Because when he first debuted in Impact, he was like, "Oh man, I'm a bull, I'm gonna kick your ass." I was like, "Oh man, this guy is great." And ever since then, well, he hasn't really done much of anything. So it does feel like we could do a little bit more, but as for this match itself, these two guys did not slow down at all, until of course Black Taurus was in control, because he's the big bad animal kind of a dude, and he was working over TJP's back. But then TJP died over the top rope, he took out the rest of the K, he hit his Mamba Splash, he got the 1, 2, 3, and yeah, if you are saying to yourself, why do we do this? Give it around 3 minutes and then you will know. It also turned out that we had some fallout here because as soon as we were done, out stormed Moose. He kicked the crap out of TJP and then he went all stereotype wrestler on us because he got a chair, he sat in the middle of the ring and he was like, "Look, I am not moving until somebody sorts out my problem." You think by now our wrestling promotion would have some sort of plan in place to prevent this. It happens all the flipping time. Thankfully, there was an easier way on this evening because at this moment, we saw the return of Chris Sabin. And of course, Chris Sabin hasn't been around because Moose injured him. So he got a little bit of revenge here before saying, "I want to take you on at Slammiversary." And as we would find out later on, we are getting that match. And what a smart move by Impact Wrestling, because not only does this make sense, but it moves Moose out of the title picture for a little bit. So round of applause, and for all of this madness, this is getting up. We then saw Rohit Raju, Ace Austin and Madman Fulton having a chat, and Ace Austin made the very good point when he went, "I don't know why you are so upset that my madman got involved at Against All Odds, because you all beat him up on the Impact before the pay-per-view." I was like, that man is talking sense. You could see that they were forming some kind of alliance though, and that was going to rear his head later on. Or right now, because it was then Josh Alexander versus Madman Fulton, because of course Josh was like, "Oh, you ruined that 5-way at the pay-per-view, and now I don't know who my number one contender is, so I'm going to get my revenge by punching you straight in the face." Didn't work very well though, because for large portions of this match, the Madman just threw him around like he was a child. And we really shouldn't say that, because it's illegal to throw a child around, and if you do know anybody that is doing it, you should absolutely report them to the police. Ace Austin would interfere when the referee wasn't looking because he is just a massive dick, and it took Josh Alexander hitting this ridiculous suplex to get back on the front foot, but nothing would compare to how he finished this off because he just dropped Madman Fulton, who is not a small man, right on his head, and he did pin him. I was a little bit worried he was dead. I was really pleased to see the champion win though, because again, it's those little things. And actually, there was some kind of chemistry here. I wouldn't mind seeing it again, so up. For the second match running though, we did have some shenanigans, because Ace Austin was in there quicker than somebody saying, "Hey, I've got free ice cream," when essentially everybody in the X Division match that's going to be happening at Slammiversary, which is now an Ultimate X contest, came out, and they all basically had a bit of a kerfuffle. At that point though, Mahabali Shera returned to Impact Wrestling, and of course tying into the the earlier skit, he destroyed everyone, apart from Madman Fulton, Ace Austin, and his old buddy, maybe who the hell knows, Rohit Raju. Here's my 2 points though. 1, this was 2 post-match beatings in a row, but also 2, I cannot keep up with what Shearer's relationship with anybody is. I swear he was choking Rohit a few weeks ago, and also the commentators were shouting like I say, oh my gosh, he's back. He hasn't been gone that long. I mean, it must have been a few weeks. So I do get what we're doing. We need some sort of filler feud before we do get to the pay-per-view, which is like a month away. This kind of just felt really over the top and crazy. It didn't really make much sense, and yeah, it was just another post-match brawl. That's getting it down. It also looks like we're going to break up Deonna Purrazzo's group too, because we cut to her, and she was just going, Susan, you're a waste of space. Kimberly, you're a piece of trash. You never get anything done, and I'm the champion, and I no longer want anything to do with you. Susan then went nuts and said, well, wait a minute, you wouldn't even be the champion if it wasn't for us. And I do think they're going to have a match on next week's Impact, so you've got to believe that when we get to Slammiversary, by then Susan will have become Su Yung, which they have been teasing for ages, and will finally do that match. And I have a sneaking suspicion Deonna Purrazzo could lose. I guess we have to wait and see. W. Morrissey also cut a promo as well, and he is so obsessed with everybody in the Impact locker room being friends. He's like, Rich Swann and Willie Mack, they were friends, and this guy, they were friends, and everybody falls on their ass. And look, I'm sure I'm looking for things that aren't there, but I was a bit like, he keeps mentioning buddies. He used to have a very close pal. Maybe Impact is about to bring them in. Again, that is just wild speculation on my end, but if I am right, I'm gonna be really proud. Steve Maclin then debuted, who of course used to be Steve Cutler in WWE. And all this was fine. He was wearing this like trench coat thing. He looked really pissed off. Good for him. This was just a big squash match too, as Jason Page got elbowed right in the face and then lost after the Falcon Arrow. Now, as I've said time and time again, I will say once again now, I am always all right with a Falcon Arrow winning a wrestling match. What a ridiculous maneuver it is. It probably would finish somebody off. So I don't really know where we are going with this character because I still don't even understand what the persona is. But in terms of starting things off with a bang, yeah, sure, fine. Up. Rachael Ellering and Jordynne Grace were then kind of bickering backstage, and a small part of me was like, man, we need to pull the trigger on this soon, because it does feel like we're doing the same thing week in, week out. And then we had a little chat with Don Callis. He said that Scott D'Amore is over-passionate, which is why he needs to be involved with Impact Wrestling, because he essentially sees wrestlers as pieces of meat and scum, and he doesn't care who the Anthem representative is going to be, because he's Don Callis, and he is the king of the world. And then don't know what to do, because it was Rachael Ellering versus Tenille Dashwood. Okay. Now it was good in the sense that Jordynne Grace wasn't at ringside, because of course those two have fallen out, and because Caleb with a K was there, he just got involved as much as he possibly could. Like at one point, he just held Rachael Ellering's foot because he's a really annoying person. But unless we're trying to get across that Ellering is in the same position as Jordynne Grace, but I thought the story was that Grace keeps losing, hence why her confidence is shot, and Rachael Ellering keeps winning, which is why Jordynne's getting mad. Well, I don't get it, and I don't get the finish. Because Tenille slapped Rachael, and while that led to her getting really mad, she essentially just walked into the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roll-up. So Tenille Dashwood pinned her, much as she had pinned Grace. Also, that officially has to be her finishing move now. She is using it all the time, but more power to her, because when you do it right, nobody ever kicks out. That was that though. There was no Grace afterwards to kind of maybe laugh or prod the bear. Tenille Dashwood took a selfie, because that's what she does. And I was like, okay, I don't know where this is going anymore, and it could prove me completely wrong, but in terms of the context from this, down. We just had the most random stuff next as well, because TJP and Fowler Bar, so they're back together, were going to knock on Scott D'Amore's door when Decay arrived, because of course, you know, Black Taurus and TJP had that match earlier, and they fell out, and now they're going to have a tag team match. So that one was a little bit on the nose. I suppose you've got to get there somewhere. This is how Impact chose to do it. You can almost copy and paste what I just said though, because we then cut to Fire and Flavor, who decided they were going to bully some janitors, which is not very nice. But then out of one of the bins became Rosemary, and then behind Fire and Flavor was Havoc, and they not only beat up the tag team champions, but they literally threw them in the trash. Now, it was teased last week that maybe these two would become friends, but I didn't think it was just gonna happen like Halabaji. I thought we'd get some little story step, but no, even though they were fighting to be in the World Championship match 7 days ago, now they just the best of buds. So this will lead to another feud, and again, I just think you could add a little bit more depth in there. And yes, Fire and Flavor found a trash bag in the trash that had Mickey on it. So that's either an inside joke or maybe Mickey J James is going to come to Impact Wrestling, and I'd like that, not only because she's brilliant, but also she is doing that women's show for NWA, so maybe she'll turn up to Impact to do some recruiting, so that had me intrigued, and we wait and see. Kojima then defeated Rhino. This was just great. Because it was just two big dudes kicking the crap out of each other, and that's all I wanted beforehand, and that's what I got. So I sat there, and I was very sports entertained. And I was also like, oh, well, I hope Kojima does the cutter, and he did. I was like, oh, I hope he does the chops, and he did. I was like, oh, I hope he does the lariat, and he did. And that's how he beat Rhino as well. So you're just getting the satisfaction, and you're sticking it up my ass. Given that if the New Japan man had one as well, him and Eddie Edwards were going to get a tag team title shot against Violent by Design, well, that kind of made it even more obvious. And I know you're now saying, but wait a minute, Kojima lost it against all odds to Joe Doring. How did he even get himself in this position? And my answer to you is, Incredibly, that was the last match on the show as well, because from nowhere, Sami Callihan was in the ring, and everybody, rightfully so, was freaking out. That boy got fired. Now, Impact did send some security out here to try and calm him down, but instead Scott D'Amore arrived. He's like, look, you guys leave. I'll talk to him. Sammy, I agree with you, but you can't act like this, because Don Callis thinks you're a psychopath. I don't want to be the messenger right here, but what you're doing, well, you're kind of coming across like a psychopath. I mean, he did look bad. Somehow, though, he did get through to Callihan, who then hacked his way out of there, which was the signal for Don Callis to come out, and fair play to Callis and Scott D'Amore. They got into it here, and their argument was so legit, if you had told me they were an old married couple, I would have totally believed it. The real twist was always going to be, well, who is the Anthem representative? And if you can wrap your head around this one, it was none other than Tommy Dreamer. I mean, what? He then fired Callis from his role and told everybody that Sami Callihan is back in Impact Wrestling and he will be having his Slammiversary main event against Kenny Omega. And before I get into this, I will say it was a very effective segment. Everyone played their role very well, so up. But Dreamer as the Anthem guy, I don't really get. Like, when did this happen? Because it was kind of insinuated that he was newly put on the board, but it also wasn't insinuated at all. And if he has been there for a while, why the hell did he leave Impact for ages when he was mad that AEW was invading and stealing the title? He could have used his power to stop it, but instead he went home. And I absolutely love Tommy Dreamer. He's a bona fide legend, and I don't mind him playing this role. I just do not know, once again, how we got there. It's almost like we just took a finger and went, we're gonna go with you. And Tommy was like, yes, they pointed at me. So unless they explain this soon, it's gonna get it down. However, we have already put a bunch of things in place for Slammiversary. I mean, think of the amount of feuds that we've already hinted at, and that's what you always want to do because it gives you loads of weeks to actually build to it and get fans excited. So as ever, Impact Wrestling overall is getting up. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about last night's Impact Wrestling. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head over to WhatCulture.com, read yourself some articles, come say hello on social media, and watch more videos, especially ups and downs. You don't have to watch any wrestling, and we shall just recap it for you. My name is Simon from WhatCulture. You make sure you take care of yourself, and I'll see you throughout the weekend, because wrestling never ends.